Hello, good morning, EEARTS family. I decided to start voluntarily this time.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But miracles happen.
They do, yay.
So guys, this world is so, as we've been saying, it's not constructed to be user friendly for the masses. It's kind of crazy when we see everything that's going on. It's more than kind of crazy. You could view it as crazy, or you could view it as insidious.
Yeah, I mean, it's set up to trip us up, it's set up to hang us up on our own issues mostly.
So you see this. We see March rains sound alarm of crop losses in Brazil's soybean belt. And it's because of torrential rains. We either have too much rain in some zones or we have absolutely none in others. And this is global. Again, this is South America right here. So soybean farmers in Brazil's major growing regions are starting to worry about losing their crops as torrential rains threaten harvest of the world's largest producer. This is going on in too many places, and we could look at it. And I've always been suspicious of the new science replacing the old pseudoscience. So as more and more people wake up and say, okay, climate change, carbon induced, Al Gore, we don't believe you, right? Then there's something new that comes in, and there is science to back up. You could find you could find stats and studies to back up almost anything when you get down to it. As we know, so many of the studies, well, who funds them? Well, a lot of times it's corporations or it's government grants. And, we know about the lobbying situation. It's all just a big shell game in so many ways. Obviously, Texas farmers suffering heavy vegetable and citrus crop losses after that massive storm. Not just Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. I mean, we follow so many of the homesteading channels because that's been our focus, is to get ourselves in that situation. Anywhere you look, there's issues going on. And this was an older article, but the question there is, should California produce farming move to Arkansas? And this was back in 2015 because of the drought. Now, the drought has worsened drastically, and every single successive year has led to more and more wildfires. Not just California setting records with wildfires, but Colorado as well. And there was some in Arizona and New Mexico. So what you have is obviously extremes to the extreme. And by the way, this is the top U.S. fruit producing states. So California 51%, Florida 19%, Washington at 10%. Then you go to Michigan at 4%, New York and Oregon are at 3%, PA and Texas at 1% as far as fruit acreage. And these are the major grow zones for veggies. And you could see now, of course, in the Gulf, around, and also up in the Atlantic, we had record hurricane season. Now we are also probably going to have a record tornado season this year, the way things are setting up. And we've been watching Tornado Alley, from the center point focus being Oklahoma and into Arkansas here, Kansas. It's all shifting eastward as, the drought is settling in. Everything is intertwined and interconnected. And so as we've been trying to get across and ourselves, having a hard time deciding, where are we going to lay roots? Like, we were pretty much going to lay roots, right somewhere in the Four Corners area. And of course, then, as we've said, fracking like crazy in southern Colorado and northern New Mexico, one of our top spots. And of course, you got growing challenges too. And we have gone through a winter mostly in the area, and it's cold. I mean, it's cold. It drops down single digits regularly. It gets below zero, and if it does get colder into a big degree, then you might end up being buried in 10 feet of snow or better. And how are you going to grow in that? And then what's happened over here is horrible to the Navajo Nation and Hopi land as far as all the fracking and the poisoning of the water, because there's such a high incidence of cancer. And then we know, because we were there, that the plague upon the land hit hard in this area. We've talked to locals who lost like 3 or 4 people in their family, even in their 30s, and younger people. So, there's all these little pockets you could go. We love Flagstaff area. We love down around Show Low and Springerville, Eager, and we also love Bisbee. But everywhere you go, you're going to have a challenge. Like we follow homesteaders down here in Cochise County, and, they're running out of water and trying to do rain catchment. And if there's no rain to catch, then what are you going to do when the monsoon season doesn't come?
I know. Then there's that. I mean, that's really important. You need water to grow, but not too much water. So I'm sitting here watching all of this unfold before me, and I'm thinking, boy, if somebody just had control of the weather, boy, they would be able to do what they wanted pretty much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as you guys, many of you started following us when we were in North Carolina over here too. So, there's a lot of challenges everywhere you go. There was excessive rains. We saw hurricanes stall out and just flood this whole coastal area of the Carolinas, which, again, to me, the Carolinas feel the most like home of anywhere I've lived. It's just, I was there for maybe 10 years in both Carolinas, and really felt comfortable with the weather and the environment and everything, especially in the low country of South Carolina, one of my favorites. But again, flooding. And I remember it being in Charleston and talking to a guy that owned a restaurant there, and he was talking about the king tides, and he'd been there his whole life, and he was about my age, mid-50s. And he had never seen the king tides like they are now. So, those are not storm-induced, those are just tidal. And then, of course, Florida, with the hurricanes and everything. In 2017, we evacuated for Irma. It took like 12 and a half hours to get from here to over here. There's only 75 and 95. If you're down here, it's going to take a long time if you got to evacuate. And we've seen the storm strengthen. We saw Michael go from just a tropical storm to a Cat 5. They called it a Cat 4, but it looked like a nuclear blast went off where it landed. And we were just talking about a Cat 5 yesterday that hit, over in the Pacific. It seems like Cat 5 is getting to be the norm, and Central America doesn't usually get nailed too much by the hurricanes. Usually they tend to flow up, but they had back-to-back Cat 4, Cat 5s. Impact Guatemala, and that's why you have all the refugees there, because they got totally flooded out, and their homes blown away in many cases, and there's no food. So that's why you have that migrant caravan heading north. Everywhere you look, you're going to have issues. As far as grand solar minimum, Florida is a better place to be because it stays warmer. But then again, getting through the hurricanes and the floods and everything, everybody's got to pick your poison. It's just, there is no perfect place.
No, there's not any perfect place. So you have to look at your situation. What do you have going on? What are your needs, likes, preferences, and then kind of mold everything around you. I know for us, one of the biggest priorities is we want our freedom, especially of our body. That's the most important thing. Everything else can kind of fall into place, but what do we want mostly is freedom.
Yes, and so I've been following everything that the governors say over in these areas here closely, and so for me personally, it made me a little uncomfortable watching some of the stuff going on, and so you have to take that in consideration too. Where are you going to feel better, as far as the geopolitical situation? And this is average annual precipitation. As we see in the east, water everywhere. In the west, none to be found. And it's getting more extreme as well. And this is cotton production. So, that's the big question. Where do you go? And where are you going to be able to weather the storm? And many people, 90% of people are going to stay put. And about 10% of the people are moving this year, looking for a better place. And we see super fast commodity price cycle as a harbinger of sudden jump in inflation. Now, there's another article after this one that I got a link for you guys. And this is exactly what we were talking about, where you're going to have hyperinflation of basic goods. And then other things are in the deflationary spiral. And, the real estate cycle, it's been very, very hot. It's starting to change now. And there's so many different things that are going to impact it. But it is, again, very biblical. But these are the cycles that we see throughout history, too, when you're in times like these. Of David Devine's done such a good job talking about these cycles and saying that these are the cycles that bring down kingdoms. And then you get political unrest, and that's just getting started from a hunger standpoint, because people are going to be going hungry in many areas around the globe.
I know that's really, really unfortunate and sad. And that's why we need to not be so reliant on entities that are outside of our sphere of influence. We need to be the influence.
Exactly, and we need to be working together because the bottom line is, if we're going to just rely on these governments of the world, which either take your choice, to either have their heads up their butts, or something far worse than that. It's one of the two, because it's just so obvious that there is not a concerted effort underway to prepare for everything that is already underway and more that's coming. So super fast rise in commodity prices is underway, and it's going to be all the basic goods. It's going to be, we're just going to see it. If you go like us, we pretty much shop every 2 weeks because we've always been living like 50 to 100 miles away from anything. So when you go, okay, say you bought the same thing, it might have been $250. Now it's going to be $310 next cycle. Now it's going to be $400. It's how long can you go with this? To get by. It's going to make it really, really, really tough on so many people. But it's not really everything, as we were saying. What should we be expecting is from Zero Hedge, a bankruptcy wave, small businesses bankruptcies, because they've been shut down. And, they've been shut down because of this whole thing that we've had going on. Bankruptcies in travel, hospitality, tourism as well. Downsizing wave, corporate credit ratings, solvency versus liquidity problems, real estate, forbearance shock, commercial real estate, a new Zoom workplace, etc. Right? I mean, I think it's cool that we're heading into a world where more people could work from home, because I actually think you're more productive. I mean, many people are. Some people will just slack and snooze all day long and watch UFC fights. But other people will actually, they'll get more out of the time they're working, and then they'll also have that comfort of being home and they can watch their kids.
Oh, I know. I think that's so important. The kids need their parents, the parents need their kids. And that was probably one of the biggest unravelings of our country, I feel, is parents being away from their children and somebody else raising your kids.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You don't want the system raising your kids. That's a nightmare. Robotics wave is going to be another thing. Everything, like we were saying, no fast food restaurants are going to be employing, kids and things like that. It's going to be all robotic as far as automation goes. Tax shortfalls, falling tax revenues, more and more people, the average people, are making less. And then you get the billionaire class, which knows how to loophole everything and doesn't end up paying anything anyway, typically. Income, sales, property taxes are going to increase because they're going to be scrambling to try to make up for losses, and disposable income, inflation shock, food and goods, commodities. So, there's some things that are going to be extremely affordable. Like, you might be able to take an amazing 2-week vacation somewhere, or a cruise or something like that. But then, you're going to have to go along with the rules to get on that cruise or that plane or that vacation. And meanwhile, you might be struggling to make ends meet. Can you imagine looking at it and saying, well, our biweekly grocery bill is the same as taking a 2-week vacation in South America or Europe or something.
I know. Things are fixing to take really crazy turns.
It is. And Norwegian billionaire jumps on crypto bandwagon, predicts one Bitcoin worth millions of dollars. So, I find it really interesting because, that's just all an agreement. But everything is an agreement. But as we were saying, gold and silver have other values. They can be used for other things. But here you're just having an agreement that these digits mean something. But I do understand how people want to get out of the central regulation from the quote-unquote Fed.
I know. Definitely people want out from underneath Big Brother's thumb. They want to be able to control what goes on around them.
Yeah, and when you look at things like in Star Wars, everything's done on credits. It's the Empire's credits and stuff. I think that whole thought, everything like that, it just takes our freedom away. Me, I'd rather barter. Like, hey, I have skills with this. So, you have nursing, doctoring, massage therapy skills, energy worker skills. Well, you trade that for somebody that has great mechanical knowledge, or go visit the farmer, see what he needs, and make some trade and barter.
Yeah, I know. And that way you have people using their excellence, using the talents that they were inherently born with to help mold and grow a community. Could you imagine what a great place that would be? That'd be pretty awesome.
See, when we have all these systems, it creates the opportunity for middlemen.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that hit me when I was first, going and working, and realizing that something ultimately that cost $2.50 to produce might sell for like $19.99, but it only costs $2.50. So, I mean, if the person sold that directly, it would be like $5. But instead, it's like, well, it's got to go here and then there and then there and then there. And by that time, everybody is basically trying to get their piece and add on to it. And that's part of the greediness of the whole system. And who has benefited from this? Well, it's the billionaire class. It's the banking class. And here we see Texas launches Operation Lone Star, sending National Guard state troopers to secure border after JB opened the floodgates. I think, I know a lot of people wanted dramatic change in this past cycle that we've been through. And instead, what we have gotten is very much kind of like we're back in the same old. We have the Defense Secretary Austin saying the U.S. will strike at any time and any place of our choosing after rocket attacks on bases in Iraq. Well, again, why are we in Iraq? Why are we in 90% of the countries around the world? Because we are. Whose will are we carrying out? Are we carrying out the will of the American people? No, that's obvious. It has nothing to do with the American people. And here we see U.S. Cyber Command reveals plan to attack China and Russia amid media hysteria. And we also have the U.S. flying 2 B-52H bombers over the Middle East, and Israel was alongside, just to reassure our allies. Business as usual, guys. Yeah. It's all it is. It's business as usual.
Yeah, I know. It's like, let's see what else we have to influence and bully people in a roundabout way.
Yeah, and it's not for letting freedom ring. It's not for the American people. It's not securing the interests of us, as we know. I think a lot of us would like to do what Rand and Ron Paul have said and just say, pull all the military back. Pull all the military back, all the billions that you're spending all over the world, just handing out billions of dollars to certain countries. Just stop all that. Let's focus on us and let's focus on our problems. And if each country would kind of do that, I know it's, with the mindset we have ruling this globe, it's not the case, but that's where we have to shift from the solar plexus, me, I, and shift to the heart center and go up to that 4D instead of the 3D, heading to the 5D, which is like unity consciousness and understanding the oneness of everything, that all of us are single cells in something much bigger. So when you have cancerous cells, which, this globe, if you look at the leadership of these countries, quote unquote, and we recognize that the leaders of the countries are not really the leaders. Again, they're the puppets. But either way you look at it, every one of them is a cancerous entity. It's a cancerous cell upon this planet because they're not living in harmony. They're not living in a symbiotic relationship. It's creating stress. It's creating tension. If we were going to relate it to a body, it's creating cortisol, which is going to wear everything down and create the conditions for disease.
Right. And you look at that, and then that creates more business for the medical field.
Yes, it's a vicious cycle. Increased incidence of engine flameout due to fuel freezing with the extremes that we've had. And we've had rapid extremes, and this is just a case. I mean, watch this thing go from red to blue. as the weather patterns change. And some places are going to have 35, 40 degree changes in temperature, actual temperature. Wow. Wait till we see the tornado season this year. It's going to be bad. It feels that's what's building when you have these huge differences. And so, we're wondering about the 737s, what's going on there, mechanical issues.
I know, and that's really a big deal.
But there have been a ton of little planes going down too, and a lot of people have been paying attention to that. We were keeping track of that a couple of years back, and there's tons of them. Now, this is something you guys might not know. The moon has a comet-like tail. Every month, it shoots a beam around the Earth. It almost seems like magic, said one of the astronomers. But when you think about it, if the surface is really just covered in dust and rock, and things are moving so fast, then it only makes sense it will have a tail. We just don't see it.
Right. This is interesting stuff, and how they can't quite figure out why is the beam able to dim and get brighter at certain times too.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty wild stuff. But then again, perhaps as many cultures say, there are a lot of legends that say that the moon was not there until just recently, after perhaps the Younger Dryas cataclysm, 11,700 years ago or so, the wrath of Enlil, so to speak, and that it was brought into place, and before that it wasn't there. That's interesting, and that it's also perhaps even a hollowed out ship of sorts.
Yeah, so maybe that's why the beam is adjustable.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So the point is that I think we should all be thinking about getting a greenhouse going, pretty much wherever we are, even if you have like a little patio in your apartment outside that you could get some stuff growing on. I know it's challenging with being in an urban environment, and that is a part of the reason why people are fleeing the urban environments, kind of the opposite of the plans that were out there for certain years, like 2030, for instance. People are heading out so they could kind of self-sustain in record numbers.
Absolutely. I think having a greenhouse on your patio, you could look at it as it can be really friendly. It can give you a lot of company because you always have the elementals around you.
Yes, and we're going to be kind of silly people, and we're going to be packing up our basil plants to take on the road with us, as we just can't let them go, and they're bushes. They're doing so well. I mean, it's pretty incredible. You got to extend the growing season. You got to protect them. Look at what happened in Texas and Arkansas and Louisiana, Mississippi, and even with that, we saw heavy losses in those places from homesteading channels that we follow, and yet they still did have quite a few plants that were able to bounce back, even when the inside of the greenhouses were like hitting zero. Now, if they were exposed directly to the moisture and the cold, it would have been totally over. So there's all different designs, and you could think about some materials hold temperature better than others. And then if we do like the gentleman in Nebraska, and you're able to actually dig down into the ground and use geothermal, then you're really good to go.
Yes, and our dear sister Nicole, she's looking into grants where you can get these giant greenhouses and grow just about anything you want in there.
So this gets into the structure, the flooring, and the cover. Flooring as well can most definitely affect the heat. We were talking about how polar bears are basically dark-skinned, right? So it's the same thing with flooring too. If it's dark, that will help to absorb heat as well.
Yeah, it's all about the alchemy of how you put things together.
And it depends on where you're at, because we're going to have extremes, and I don't doubt that we're going to see some insane temperatures in Texas, for instance. I bet you anything, you're going to see a heat wave that's going to blow away all the records this year.
Absolutely, yeah.
So interesting, but yeah, greenhouses are going to be a must of whatever we can do. And I do understand there's going to be those of you that are out there in a studio apartment saying, I can't do nothing, and then we got to make the decision. Well, what do we do? several times in my life. I've had things and left it all, because I felt the call to leave it all. And not too long ago, I basically was living out of a Toyota Yaris with just what I could take with me. Made the choice and left a solid, secure job because I just felt like I can't do this anymore. It feels like it's damaging to the soul, and I'm gonna pursue dreams. I'm gonna pursue living my life the way I want to live it. And so that was kind of stressful, going from having a house and all the little things, even a motorcycle that was a lot of fun, to nothing but making the shift. And it was worth it, even though we're still nomads now. At least we have freedom of choice, and freedom of choice is a wonderful thing. And I think if more people would grab onto that and say, you know what, I'm not going to feed that corporate machine. I'm going to live my dream and do things the way I want to do my way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a decision you have to make deep in your soul. And I know there's parents out there with children and stuff like that, but I think the times when it might be actually better for your children to get out of certain situations. And yeah, you might take a risk and lose a lot, but think of the long term.
Exactly. And one thing that we see when we look at these families are doing the homesteading, and we make jokes about them. It seems like they all have 5 kids.
Yeah.
They are tight families. They are tight, loving families. And you could see that they're free of the pressure of the corporate world.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. And the kids are very proud of themselves when they do things around the farm too.
Yes. So we just wanted to share that with you guys, and we want to thank you for being part of the family. The next week or two, we'll probably have a little bit less videos up than usual because we're going to be out and about. But we'll still try to do at least get one video up a day and cover everything that's happening out there in this crazy, crazy world. So thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. And anybody that needs to reach us at EEARTS at ProtonMail or evolutionaryenergyarts at gmail.com. We'll still be doing energy sessions and counseling, coaching from the road as well. As always, guys, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.